I know what I'll do. I'll turn this into the Patreon intro video and show you guys a neat trick to do in the Godot game engine. Now I'm using the OBS screen recorder, so the frame rate's not going to be all that great. And I'm getting, with 90 characters, a frame rate of almost 40. Now the reason why they have boxes on their hooves is because I was going to do some cloth and hair simulation. Not in this video though. So that's 90 at about 35 to 40 frames per second. And here's 130. At about 35 frames per second, which is an increase of about 40 characters. Now the way I did this was I did a thing that I like to call animation grouping. Now I've got this here, this minor data GD script. Let's see if I can expand this. Nope. Also nope. But I can zoom in. I'm glad they added that. Now what I did was I have an animation group and then the maximum groups. Now this is the current animation group. And all of these characters if I can show you, they're in the group actor. Yeah, back there. Now this increases the animation group or the current animation group by 1. And if it's greater than the maximum groups, it returns it to 1. And this just gets the current animation group. Now what this does is this is in the scene itself on the top level node. And it can actually be anywhere in the scene tree because I get the tree, get the nodes in the group actor, and for I and actors, I set a metadata group and then the current group, and then I add the current group by 1. And if the current group is greater than the max group, I turn the current group to 1. Now, the reason I did it this way is because all the characters were in the scene at the same time. But if you're loading the characters individually into the scene, then you can just do this each time you load a character. Load it, increase the current group, load another one, increase the current group, and set the metadata of each. Now in the process function, I'm increasing the current animation group. So I start it up, and then I set the process true to constantly increase the current group. Now in the original animation test, where I only had 90 characters, I get the animation character, and I set an assigned animation, and then I advance it by the delta. And that's pretty much it. That's the great thing about Godot 3, is that it has the advance function. Now in the one where there was 130, this is actually from something else. If you want to do this in Godot 2, you're going to have to get your track time and then use the seek function. But currently I get the current animation player, and then I set the assigned animation. Now the reason why they both have different assigned animations, they both come from the same blend file. But I was trying both Collada imports and GLTF. There's really not much difference between the two. GLTF has less options, but it only comes with a single animation. Whereas Godot, you can have multiple animations. Now in the process, I check to see if it has the metadata group, check the minor data and the current animation group, and check to see if it equals the metadata of, well, the characters group metadata. And then I advance it by the delta times the maximum number of groups. The reason why I use only 3 groups is because if you use 4 or 5, there'll be so much of a delay that players will start noticing it. Now, of course, that was the wrong thing to do. Now, of course, the player is going to notice that the animations don't line up, which is perfectly fine because it just looks a bit more natural that way. But you can increase the amount of animated characters on screen by somewhere between 40% to 100% using this technique. Now, of course, updating your graphics drivers will help, but it's a good tactic to use if you can't get as many characters on screen as you want to. But, I mean, if you can't get as many characters on screen animating it if you want to, you can use this trick to squeeze out a few more or to improve your frame rate. But that's pretty much the entirety of the animation group. Hopefully the next tutorials I'll do will be a type of cloth, hair, and rigid body. Cloth, hair, and ragdoll simulation. And I also want to show you the A-star navigation. But that's pretty much it for now.